Right. Well, it's 6 o'clock. So we are going to get started on time. Once again, for those of you who just connected in, my name is Roseanne Santos. I am the Director of Alumni Engagement at John Jay. And I want to thank you so much. You can spend an hour anywhere, and you chose to spend it with us. So I really do appreciate that. I do want to introduce my colleague, Megan Cerezo. Wave. Megan is here for you if you have any tech issues. So you can just privately send her a chat message if you have any concerns or if something's going on or you have a question about how to manage Zoom. We are going to get started this evening on this exciting topic of artificial intelligence. We have an amazing alumna. Her name is Renee Cummings, and she has graciously accepted my invitation to do a webinar so that we can talk a little bit about the industry, the job market in the industry, and just learn overall her role in the industry. And it is growing. I am a fangirl. I follow her on LinkedIn, and every day she's speaking at a conference or a new opportunity or providing us with some important knowledge that we need to know about artificial intelligence. And you're in for a treat. That's all I have to say. So with that said, please welcome Miss Renee Cummings, who received her master's degree in criminology from our college in 2005. Welcome, Renee. And
Thank you
if we
so
can,
much for having me. It's certainly a pleasure to be here.
thank you. And it's a pleasure to have you. Like I said, I fangirl every day. I'm looking at LinkedIn and seeing what you're up to. And I thought we would start with a basic introduction. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself and then really go into how you fell into this work and why you do this work.
Certainly. So, yes, I'm a graduate of John Jay College and a proud graduate of John Jay College. I completed my master's in criminal justice and I did the specialization in terrorism studies as well. Since that, which has been probably about 15 years ago, I've been working in law enforcement as a consultant, doing extensive training when it comes to policing and best practice policing and law enforcement leadership and training in homicide prevention and homicide investigation and gun and gang violence prevention and just violence prevention in general and investigating violent crime. So that is the basis of my work. Also doing some work in juvenile justice and child protection as well. How did I get into AI? I got into AI because artificial intelligence has been applied for quite some time to the criminal justice process, particularly big data policing as well as sentencing, both of them using, and corrections as well, using algorithmic assessment tools. And algorithms are like the lifeblood of AI. And what these algorithms were doing, they were really frustrating due process because of the biased data sets. And they were overestimating the risk of recidivism, mainly for Black and Brown individuals in the court system. So the lack of diversity and inclusion and equity when it came to designing these technologies, when it came to the kinds of data sets that were being used, brought a situation of bias and discrimination and systemic racism into the criminal justice space. And one of the things that happened to me at John Jay is I walked in there hoping for a degree, and I left there being an advocate and an activist and being committed to justice across the board on all levels. So what I realized is that these algorithms were operating in a way that was really unjust to Black and Brown communities. And I felt as a criminologist that I had to be the conscience for AI. And I just invited myself to the party, as I always say. And then I have been there and I have been trying to create space for other individuals with criminal justice degrees to really do the same thing.
You gave me chills when you said that you came out an activist and an advocate. I don't have the pleasure of being a John Jay alum, but I'm certainly very proud to work there. And that really gave me chills. And the fact that you invited yourself to the table, no, you didn't have anybody asking you to the dance. You just showed up and they had to let you in. And I love that. So let's start with some of the basics. If you could just give us a very simple, if possible, definition of artificial intelligence. And to that point, what is an artificial intelligence ethicist and data activist? And those are the titles that were on the flyer for you. So if you can give us some simple explanations for those of us who maybe would like a better understanding.
So in its simplest form, AI, artificial intelligence, is really a computer mimicking human intelligence. So the computer using predictive analytics to come up with a decision that a human would make. It takes a lot of data, feeding a lot of data to that. It takes a particular level of literacy, which is considered a programming or coding. And this gives the computer a particular instructions or set of instructions. And that's what an algorithm is. It's a set of instructions that the computer gets to come up with a particular decision. So one of the easiest ways of thinking about AI would be how you use social media. And if you use Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter, and sometimes you may find that you are searching for something on the net, and then the next thing you go on to Facebook and there's an ad from that organization on your page, and you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, somebody's following me, or somebody is looking at me, or who's paying attention to what I do. Those are the algorithms. And you would also find that these algorithms pretty much secure in their memory your tastes. So the things that you like, you're going to see, and the things that you don't like, you're probably not going to see. So the more that I got into AI and the more things that I shared pertaining to AI, the less certain of my friends' comments came up on Facebook. So I started to get more neuropsychology, neuroscience, data science, and those were the things that were coming on my feed as opposed to the regular chat from my friends. So that's how it works. A data activist is really, I would say to you that I am the conscience of a data scientist. So a data scientist sits and codes and works with data sets. And I look at those data sets and I say to you, there's something missing here, or there is something wrong here, or we should not be using this data set here, or this data set has a history. Now, one of the things that I look at, and I focus my research right now in particular when it comes to being a data activist, is that there's a certain amount of intergenerational trauma with data, because now you are taking your data from stage to stage to stage to stage, life stage, and everything is captured in that. So your buying history, your credit history, your education history, where you live, all of the things that you are now captured in your data. So you're finding wherever you move, that data is moving with you. So that data has a memory, and that memory may not be real, because one of the things you may want to think about is that when you look at the history of, let's say, Black, brown people, or Black, indigenous people of color across the world, you would see that they are all linked to, let's say, oppression or colonization. Black and brown peoples have been colonized. And that history of colonization, that history of data collection, that history of statistics began not to benefit Black, indigenous people of color, but began to benefit the settler population. So let's think about Black people in the US and something like the 3/5 clause, or something like the one drop rule. So with the 3/5 compromise, it said that a Black person in this country was 3/5 of a man. So that lets you know the history of data collection. When we look at what happened to, let's say, Black and brown women when it came to forced sterilization, what happened when the US went into Guatemala and injected people in Guatemala with syphilis to do an experiment, not paying attention to ethics, not paying attention to the health of those people. So data, as they say, is the numbers don't lie. But as a data activist, I show you all the lies in the numbers.
Wow.
As an AI ethicist, I look at how artificial intelligence is being deployed across society, and I look at what are the ethical positions that we need to have, those rigorous and robust guardrails that are required, things like security, privacy, governance, data protection, data must do no harm, non-discrimination, fairness. accountability, transparency, explainability. These are all concepts of the data ethicist that I ensure that the technology has embraced. I also look at questions of diversity and equity and inclusion. Who's at the table? Who's designing these technologies? Why are technologies being designed in ways that undermine underserved communities or alienated and disinvested high needs communities? Why are we deploying mass surveillance technologies in Black and Brown communities? Why are we re-victimizing those communities? So as an AI ethicist, I look at the development and the deployment of AI, how it impacts society, and I ensure that civil society, stakeholders, and communities have an active voice. And for those who are unrepresented and underrepresented, I amplify your voice and create this space for you to enter, to speak for yourself.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Renee. I want to be your intern, and I'm not even into AI like that, but you're making me excited about the ethicist piece. I'm very much believe in the ethics of any industry that you go into. And I remember about a year ago when I met you, you talked about why John Jay students are perfect for the artificial intelligence industry because they came in from a humanistic, sociological perspective. They understood the human aspect of criminal justice, while the coders didn't. They understood the binary, the zeros and the ones, and the coding, and they weren't necessarily intermingling the two, and that's what's needed. So people think about artificial intelligence as a science, but you also need the humanistic aspect of it so that it doesn't turn into yet another platform for systemic racism. And that always stands out to me. So, with that said, what can you tell our college students, our recent alums, or just alums that might be looking to make a change in their careers about the job opportunities or even careers within artificial intelligence? Should they be taking specific courses? Should they be getting specific certifications? What are your recommendations?
Well, I will say this in particular, because of COVID-19 and because of how this pandemic has impacted society, development in AI has sped up, uh, you know, thousandfold at this moment because everyone is looking for precision everything. Everyone wants a contactless experience, and AI is a suite of technologies that can deliver that. So now you are seeing just about every industry has been fused with AI. Criminal justice, healthcare, education, the fact that we're doing this remotely by Zoom, uh, just about politics, our fear of this disinformation campaign that's happening right now, deep fakes. When it comes to AI, what we're realizing is what is required is a multidisciplinary approach. So sociology and psychology are critical, neuropsychology critical to its application within the realm of this technology. When it comes to criminal justice and AI is a natural fit. And that's why my work is at the intersection of that. So policing, you have the use of big data policing, predictive analytics, you have investigative skills, crime scene reconstruction, criminal profiling, you have forensic psychology, you have forensic media, you have forensic computing and cyber crime, as well as looking at cyber security, big issues, but public affairs, public administration, law, child protection, juvenile justice, public safety, urban, anything that's happening in an urban space requires an AI interpretation of it as well. So just every aspect of everything that we are doing now is being infused with algorithms. And these algorithms or algorithmic decision-making systems are leading the way in criminal justice, from policing, sentencing, corrections, public safety, recidivism, and everything in between. So every discipline that we study in John Jay, every degree that we give out at John Jay is now being fused with artificial intelligence. You don't have to be a coder. It is important to understand the technological, but you don't naturally have to be a coder. And one of the things that you can do, you can learn coding even after you graduate. You can do that, but you need to start to understand how the profession is changing. One of the things that you've got to always do with a degree is future proof it, because a degree, like everything else, gets dated. So one of the applications of AI is that it is going to keep you relevant professionally, because everything from policing, national security, defense, corrections, public administration, public health, psychology, psychometric testing, law enforcement leadership, accountability and transparency in policing, reimagining policing, using technological tools. All of these are things that are very specific to the work that we do at John Jay. So one of the best things that you can do right now is get your degree, or if you have your degree already, see what's happening in your particular area of specialization and how AI is impacting that, and get involved.
Wow, I just wrote down that quote, so you'll find it on LinkedIn tomorrow. Always future proof your career, Renee Cummings. That is so, it's so important. You have to be, that's that pivot. Everybody's been talking about the pivot, and that's exactly what you're going for. And so, what kind of jobs are there right now in AI that our audience can look into, whether it's entry level, middle level, or executive level? What are the
I
kinds of jobs that are?
Right. So there are jobs out there. I mean, there are some of the basic ones, which would be crime analytics, definitely, criminalist, anything that happens when it comes to research, when it comes to working in the court system, in sentencing and understanding the application of these algorithmic decision making tools to sentencing. If you're working in juvenile justice, it's being applied within the realm of children. It's also being applied within the realm of school discipline and the education system. So you can apply for anything. If it's cybersecurity that you're doing, the jobs are there. If it's research that you're doing, the jobs are there. If it's law that you're doing, there is now this futuristic interpretation of law, and you would find that all law schools are requiring you to specialize in tech law, because technology law is so critical to what we're doing, because these algorithms, our computers, artificial intelligence, have changed the ways in which we engage with each other and in ways in which we engage with society. So now sending an email or a tweet or a message on Twitter or Instagram, or signing a, saying that you would do something for someone, like you reached out to me through email and I said, yes, I was going to do that. So in a way, we had a contract. You didn't have to send me a fax, right? So everything is changing. That whole social relationship, the social contract that we have. And what we're seeing is that these algorithms are so powerful. They're impacting human rights and civil rights. And the United Nations now has many committees that are looking at algorithms and AI. The EU, right in Congress last year, we passed the Algorithmic Accountability Act. Congress was also looking at an act for disinformation and deep fake. So it's all around you. The good thing about it is that if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, as someone with a criminal justice or public administration or a psychology or forensic psychology degree, you combine creativity with your certification, and then you can create your own startup. You can come up with something, because what we're seeing now because of COVID is that people aren't hiring as they used to, because there is no hiring to go and sit in an office behind a desk. So you have got to also come up with creative things that you can design, and things that you may be able to include other members in, or even a nonprofit that looks at the application of technology in your own community, or looks at the application of technology for incarcerated communities. And when these individuals come back home as returning citizens out of the criminal justice system, and there's so many things, the combination between public health, COVID-19, coming up with solutions to really treat with this pandemic, and fusing that again with artificial intelligence. So, it's really a time to think, and to think big, and to think how, because the world isn't going back. We know that. The world is never going back to what we used to know. And many of the jobs that we had are no longer there. And just about, as I would say to you, any industry that you are in, all you've got to do is Google healthcare and AI, national security and AI, public administration and AI, crisis management and AI, and how predictive analytics are letting you see things are happening before they actually happen, before a crisis happens, before a flood happens, before something happens in the city that can create panic. So it's really a great place to start to rethink and reimagine and reposition yourself.
Thank you. Wow, that's a lot to think about. I'm going to type in higher ed and AI and see what else is going on out there.
Yes, you shall.
Are there any organizations or trade organizations that you would recommend folks become members of and maybe start networking in the field?
Well, they're not really trade organizations, but there are some organizations out there that are looking at technology,
Okay.
that are looking at the responsible use of technology, like All Tech is Human, and many of the other, academic institutions in the city already have programs. There are many certificate programs, professional studies programs, where you can also get an AI certificate, looking at strategic leadership, looking at business skills, looking at business strategy. So if you want to enhance, there are many universities out there that are providing that level of certification as well. When it comes to our trade organizations, there are trade organizations, but there are many groups and nonprofits and other organizations that are building capacity and which you can become a member of. But the main thing with AI would be, not only is it efficient and it's effective, but you want to ensure that however you use the technology, it is equitable and it is done ethically. And that is what is critical.
And that's what John Jay is about. We're fierce advocates for justice. So it's great to hear that someone is doing the AI work on the other side of it, where we are trying to keep it ethical. So speaking of skills, you talked about the certifications, you talked about the fact that any major at John Jay would fit into an AI profile. What are some of the soft skills? I call them essential skills, but everybody knows them as soft skills that you think someone working in the AI industry should have?
Well, I think what they want right now is that they want a human centric approach to the technology, and they want an approach that brings emotional intelligence. So, psychology, as I said, a forensic psychology, critical, also communication skills as well, are many of the things that we're seeing, like natural language processing, understanding that voice technology is critical. And voice technology is not only Alexa or Siri having one voice. Those voices are going to change as the demographics of the world are changing as well. So understanding that you as a consumer have the power to determine how these technologies are designed. So it really is about imagination, and it's about intellectual imagination, and it's about moral imagination, and it's about using your imagination and using those communication skills and looking at the degree that you have, and just doing something that you may not have ever thought to do, which would be apply to a non-traditional company. So you apply to a big tech company. So if it is that you have a degree in criminal justice, you can still apply to a tech company, because you would find that tech companies are the ones that are designing the criminal justice tools. They're not being designed by the Department of Justice. They're not being designed by the police specifically. They're being designed by tech companies. They're being designed by startups. And you can get a place there because of the experience that you have in criminal justice, and the fact that they're able to now fuse that with their technological expertise.
So when writing a cover letter, you have to really hone in on how criminal justice is a transferable skill in AI, in cyber, or whatever technological company or non-traditional company you want to get into. And
Exactly.
I think sometimes our young people are worried, like, what am I going to do with my criminal justice degree if I don't want to be a police officer or if I don't want to be an agent? And I think this is a wonderful alternative to these traditional professions. So thank you for that. I want to start getting some questions from the audience. I know you have a lot. Just start typing them into the chat box. I will ask one more question of Renee so that you can get your thoughts together to ask questions. Don't take advantage of the fact that she's here. This is a really unique perspective on industry and getting a job in an industry that maybe you had not thought of. So please definitely ask questions. I'm going to get a little practical here. If I'm in an interview, I'm a criminal justice major and I'm applying to, as you say, maybe a tech company. And what would be a question that you think I might get, but also if you wouldn't mind answering it for us so we can get a sense of what you mean by kind of, you know, the intersectionality?
Well, I think one of the things they would ask you is, how would you apply your criminal justice degree to technology or to the particular job that you're applying for that has a technological slant? And what you are saying is not only are you aware of technology, because when you were working towards your criminal justice degree, you had to do certain statistical model building as well as understanding big data and predictive analytics and how all of these things work in policing. But what you're also bringing is the sociological understanding of how this technology could impact society. What you also bring in is an in-depth look to how criminal justice impacts people. So you're bringing those people skills, you're bringing a human-centered approach to our technological skills, and you're also bringing a knowledge and skill set about criminal justice that the developer or the data scientist may not have. So what you are bringing is you are bringing an approach that will be very strategic when it comes to detecting risks and managing risks and ensuring that this organization does not create crises, basically in that way. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. So the questions are coming in, Renee. The first question: how do you dispel the incorrect notion that AI is dangerous or unable to be understood?
Well, so with all technologies and with anything that's new, there's always a certain amount of fear. And one of the things that I do as an AI ethicist is I demystify the technology. And I bring it from, let's say, Main Street, or bring it from, wherever it is, and I just bring it to you. So one of the things is there is definitely fear, and this is why ethics is so critical. Because what ethics does, it builds public trust and it builds public confidence by involving stakeholders in the design, the development, and the deployment of this technology. AI is not about fear because the world is already going AI. If you have a smartphone, your data is being collected every day. And one of the things that I look at and I will speak to you about is when it comes to an arrest, and what the police can do right now. You can be arrested digitally and don't even know. There's something called geolocation warrants, geofencing warrants, digital subpoenas. All of these are now being deployed, which means that you can be in a particular area using your phone. Your data is now part of what is happening in that area. A crime is committed there. The police asks for or submits for a geofencing warrant, and you become a person of interest. It's as real as it gets. So, what you need to understand, this technology is not about fear. You've got to educate yourself about AI because you're already using the technology. You see, every time you click, every time you like, every time you share, your data is being used and someone is collecting your data. Every time you tag someone, every time you tag yourself at a restaurant or at a bar, or you tag yourself at a store, your data is being used. When you go on vacation and you tag yourself at a resort, your data is being collected. So we are looking what happens on the front end of our phone, and we don't know where that data is going. So your data is going somewhere, and someone is monetizing that data, and that data, your own data, can soon be weaponized against you. So you've got to be on top of a technology such as artificial intelligence. You've got to educate yourself. You've got to see how the technology is moving forward, how it's impacting you. And AI is a beautiful technology in that it's very powerful. It has extraordinary promise. The work that AI is doing in communications, in healthcare in particular, in areas such as cancer and breast cancer, and bringing precision healthcare to you, and in just about every area. The fact that we no longer have to sit in the library, and we can have the library on our phone, or a professor could have a lecture on Zoom. We're seeing the ways in which technology is impacting, but you've got to be on top of it. So remove fear from the conversation. And I always tell people, no matter what I'm talking about, remove fear and replace the word fear with educate. So educate yourself, don't fear anything, and empower yourself with this technology, because the technology is already, it's not coming. A lot of people think AI is coming. It's not coming. AI is, if you use Netflix, if you use Amazon, if you have a car with the Internet of Things, and you have a smartphone and a smart car and a smart home, and you're using all these technologies, your speaker system is set up to your phone, and we have seen cases already where Alexa has become a witness in a homicide. Okay, so things are happening, and you have got to be aware. So if you're using Alexa, Alexa is collecting data, and that data is about what you do when you get up. What do you say? What are the things you like? What do you ask Alexa or Siri to do? All of that. If you have a smart car with internet and someone sits in your car, that person's data is also being collected as well. So you've got to really bring yourself up to speed.
So let me just push a little bit on that. Let's get a little provocative here. The question in and of itself was very much of one opinion. It said, how do you dispel the incorrect notion, right? So this person already formulated an opinion about AI, but are there certain things that we should buyer beware? So, in your opinion, without getting yourself into any trouble, I don't know
I
if
don't
you
know.
have sponsors or anything like
No,
that,
no, no.
but what do young people are using these things without reading the fine print. So, what would you say to us? Don't use that.
No. So this is it. So it's not about don't use. It's about understanding, and everything you use, your data is being collected. We all do it. We get a new program, we get a new product, and we just click, 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 click until we get to use it. And we have given up all our privacy rights right until we get to use it because of the urgency. It's about urgency, and we want to do it. That's what I'm saying, is that you've got to understand that your data is powerful. You've got to understand that your data is the lifeblood of technology. You've got to understand that it is being collected. But because we can't see data, data is not something we can see, but it's being collected. And someone is using that data to make a decision about you, either who you are, how you think, what resources you should get, what do you deserve. So we have seen our data being used, and we have seen big tech companies and advertisers pushing a particular product our way and pushing a particular product somewhere else. So you have got to understand how powerful that data is. You have got to understand the ways in which it can be used. You have got to understand that many of the ways in which we use AI at the moment provide us entertainment, are seen as fun, it's seen as us being on our social media platform, us being influencers, us doing fun things. But there are also things that you've got to pay attention to and understand that this technology is here. It is no longer coming, and it is going to change the ways in which we engage with each other as a community, as a society, and the ways in which countries are now engaging with each other.
Okay. We have a question about a specific recommendation How can we begin careers in AI with an MPA public policy degree? Are there certifications we should have? Do you have?
So if you have an MPA, that's a master's in public admin,
Mhm.
what you can do now is get a certificate in AI leadership, AI management, strategic AI application. And there are many universities offering that. Just about any university, you can just Google. I will tell you some of the big ones would be Columbia, MIT, Stanford. All of the universities are offering that now. That combines very nicely with your MPA. And it means that now, because think of it, if you have a master's in public admin, and you are working in any of the administrative offices in New York City, you're dealing with data because data is how you make an informed decision. There is no public admin office anywhere in the world that's not dealing with data. So data is how you make an informed decision about a policy, about a procedure, a process, or a product, or the ways in which resources are going to be used. And New York City has an entire commitment of human resources and financial resources that looks and collects data in this city as well as in this state. Data is what we use to make decisions about COVID-19. Data is what we use to make decisions about everything. So you've got to combine that master's in public administration with probably a leadership or strategic management certificate in AI. And what it does, it future proofs you, and it also gives you an opportunity to move up in ways or with much more speed, because now the city is planning for a post-COVID experience. And much of the things that they're looking for would be contactless experiences. How are we going to negotiate certain spaces? How are we going to apply public health to many of the processes and procedures for public admin? Uh, if you're working in a hospital, much of what is being done in clinical care and in healthcare right now is being fused with AI when it comes to keeping hospital spaces clean, when it comes to billing records, when it comes to triage, when it comes to doctors deciding who is going to get care and how that care is going to be given. All of it is being, you know,
Mhm.
really infused with algorithms.
Excellent. Thank you for that recommendation. What are some of the minimum requirements to get into AI? And what are some diversity friendly or entry level friendly companies now hiring that you may know of?
Right. So the thing about AI is this: there are some people who just have an idea and they sit down at home and they come up with this idea, they come up with a solution to a challenge that they're seeing in society. Because when you look at some of the people who have some of the startups that are making the big money, when you look at them, you realize that they really had no background in AI or in coding or in anything. They just had a concept and they decided to build upon that, you know. Also, a lot of the people who are, I mean, AI is also about robotics. And there are lots of people now who are creating robots to do many things. We're seeing robots cleaning hospitals because, of course, they cannot get COVID-19. We're seeing robots making pizza. We're seeing robots flipping hamburgers. We're seeing robots, you know, doing just about everything. You know, we're seeing cars that don't need humans to drive them. So we're seeing how things are changing. Some of the companies that are looking to hire, you see the big ones would be Facebook and Microsoft and Amazon, and all the big tech companies are still hiring. IBM, they're all still hiring individuals. When it comes to criminal justice in particular, you can still get into policing if that's something that you want to do, but you're going to do more analytics. You're going to do more predictive analytics and more crime analysis, which is critical. But what you will do as someone from John Jay and someone who has been part of this conversation, you would bring an ethical approach to the work that you're doing. So you're not going to unleash these algorithms algorithms into underserved communities and re-victimize Black and Brown people, you're going to understand that we're not going to use algorithms to oppress. We're not going to use algorithms to disenfranchise. And what we want to use algorithms to do would be build up our communities and really change the trajectory of many of the lives that are in need of some sort of support to take them to a more positive and proactive expression of self.
Wow, thank you. I like that you continue to push the ethics. I think it's obvious that that is the key to your passion, is to make sure that this all remains ethical. Somebody asked, I am just curious, are there some fields that have stayed traditional?
I'm thinking, what would be a field that has stayed traditional? You know what? I can't say so because even the church is using algorithms, right?
Really?
So yeah, the church is using algorithms. Now we're doing church on Zoom. Now you know the priests, the pastors, the ministers, the imams, the pundits, they're all using technology. So there is nothing traditional, because think of it this way: the minute a child is born, what do they get? You know, by the time they turn one, or they're getting these toys that are all toys that are now technological. You know, you're seeing babies and they have iPads and they're using phones and they're using games on the computers. So this is who we are. You know, there are young people right now who have never used a landline. There are young people right now who've never seen a landline. So, and who've never seen, you know, a few days ago, my daughter and I was walking into the apartment building, and into the back by the garbage, there was a discarded typewriter. And she was like, wow, did you ever see a real typewriter? And she's never seen a typewriter. And she was just blown away because all she knows is a computer.
Right.
So, and this is us now. So think of the generation that's being born now. The only world that they are going to know would be AI. They are not going to know what contact is, because of COVID-19 and this pandemic, everything is contactless. So now when you go to an elevator, as things improve, you may not need to even press that button. You may be able to conduct whatever you need to do with that elevator from your phone, because we're going to have to find a way to get people back into big buildings, because we have a lot of those big buildings in New York City that are now empty. The other thing that you want to think about also when it comes to AI is that, you know, it's, and I always tell people, it's like a new language. It's the language of now. It's the language of now. Some of us can't do without Amazon shopping for 1 week, and then that's what Amazon is about. It's about algorithm. The more you shop, the more you get things saying, if you like this, you're going to like this, and this. When you watch Netflix, because you like that movie, you're also going to like that. That's predictive analytics. It's trying to make a decision. Now, the unfortunate thing is that you can't make those kinds of willy-nilly takes decisions when it comes to criminal justice, because it's about life, it's about liberty, it's about people's freedoms, it's about due process. So this is why these algorithmic decision-making systems that we don't fuss about when it comes to entertainment being used in those critical spaces become very, very contentious and must be interrogated, because there have been several cases where individuals have come up to the parole board and been denied and had to take the assessment tool, which would be the algorithm, to court to win their freedom. So it's fun. It's engaging. You know, people love social media, but it's about being conscious of your data. It's about being vigilant, and it's about understanding that this is the new language, artificial intelligence, and you have got to be literate in it. So you've got to educate yourself, you've got to keep yourself aware, and you've got to use this technology, because right now the big tech companies are using us, right? So you've got to use this technology. How did Facebook become so powerful? Whose data has Facebook been using?
Right.
And we gave it all up when we thought we were sharing baby pictures, you know, weddings and birthdays and fun things. And I graduated and all the fantastic things that were so personal to us. Facebook was able to monetize to become one of the most powerful companies in the world. And Facebook has more power than some governments in some countries.
Wow. Mm. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. Um, we have a couple more questions. One of the biggest challenges is that the law cannot keep up with the pace of technology. How can the law do a better job of keeping pace with the technology?
So that's the big challenge because technology is always light years in front of the law. The law is trying. There's something called future law. And as I said to you, just about every college, every institution that is offering a law degree is also offering classes in tech law and in understanding algorithms and in understanding algorithmic fairness and algorithmic justice. It is really, really critical. As I said, there has been attempts by governments and by agencies that are looking at what's been happening when it comes to technology and the law. We know that there are big antitrust issues. We know that there's always that corporate interest versus public interest. But if you are a student and you are interested in the law, you should be interested in algorithms and in tech law. And if you are a lawyer working right now, you also need to educate yourself. Now, there are some good things with the law in that because of the fact that the law and just legal processes requires you to read a lot of information and a lot of books. Algorithms and AI have been making law easier because it's able to scan thousands and hundreds of thousands of documents in real time that the human eye would be impossible to scan. We're also seeing algorithms and AI judges and magistrates already in courts across the world, and particularly in China. So you're going to court, and there is a hologram that looks like a judge, and it's really an algorithm that's deciding cases. Algorithms are being used, or AI systems are being used more and more when it comes to mediating case and small business cases. And very soon we may see more and more. There was also one case recently in Nigeria where a man was got a death sentence. He got his death sentence via Zoom. So we're seeing more courts using these algorithmic assessment tools and algorithmic decision-making systems. So this is why ethics is so critical. This is why data activism is so critical to the application, because in as much as it's doing great things, it's doing things that are very contentious and controversial. So denying parents' rights or taking a child away from a parent because of these predictive tools. We're seeing those as well. And we're seeing families being denied benefits because an algorithm was built with, a data set that is biased. We have seen people lose their insurance because they were flagged for fraud. Because of an algorithm. So, in as much as AI has the power and the potential to improve lives and change society, if left unchecked, it can create an extraordinary amount of harm.
Well, I hope we're not going to have AI juries. I mean, what would be the implication of something like that? I mean, it's rhetorical. I don't know if you have an
And
answer or a theory.
well, I'll tell you this much. Someone is probably thinking about that now, and someone is probably thinking about designing the algorithms to do that. And this is again why AI ethics is so critical. And this is why, we consider AI ethics a movement, and there are extraordinary minds working in the field of AI ethics. And you know, this is why we've got to ensure that those guardrails are robust and they are rigorous, and that we offer the technology to do the things that are good, and we are standing there as a shield or a barricade to ensure that it does not hurt, harm, disenfranchise, or further alienate any particular group. And it is unfortunate what we are seeing with technology is that the same kinds of biases that we have seen in society are now being encoded in algorithms. And this is why I am in the space that I am in now. And this is why I have an extraordinary amount of work to do as an ethicist and a data activist.
You have to recruit some folks to help you for sure. We have another question, but I believe you answered it. So maybe you can just summarize it. How difficult was the transition from criminal justice to tech? Did you have to relearn new skills such as coding? If so, how difficult was the transition?
So I've never made a transition. I have just created a lot of intersectionalities. I am still a criminologist. I am still a criminal psychologist, and I still work in therapeutic jurisprudence. What has happened is that AI was infused into all of these areas. So I had to have an understanding of how data was changing the ways in which justice is being administered. I am not a coder. I say that I am an AI ethicist, so I work in the ethics realm of it. As a data activist, I am the conscience of a coder. So if a coder thinks like me when it comes to racial justice and social justice and design justice and algorithmic justice, then they won't be creating any tools to harm you. They'd be understanding the long-term impacts of their technology. However, I have signed up for a coding class
Yeah,
that
yeah,
just to because you just want to have an understanding of what's happening and how it's done. And I work now as a data activist in residence, the first in the country actually, out at the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia. I'll be leading a team of coders and data scientists. So just to bring myself up to speed and to ensure that I have a really solid understanding of the work that they are doing before I put pressure on them, I am definitely going to learn the skill. As I said, it's a language, right? So remember when we got computers, we had to learn that language, the language of email, then we had to learn the language of Facebook, and then we had to learn the language of Twitter and the language of Instagram and how to tag and how to hashtag. And these are all languages that we're learning to be proficient and to be communicators in this time. I've got to learn that language as well. So I too am going to do a course, but the work that I do does not require me. I think my work as a criminologist brought me face to face with statistics and data and big data policing and intelligence led policing and precision policing and all of that using data. So I understand data, but I think I want to understand coding a little more because there are a few things I want to do when it comes to coding as well. So it's just about your skill sets. And I think now we have a lot of time on our hands, and it's a good time to learn a new skill.
that's excellent. A lot of people, they said one of the companies that went up in stock was Rosetta Stone because people were trying to learn languages. We were stuck at home. And as you said earlier, coding, AI, all of that is just another language that we have to become familiar with. So, there aren't any more questions in the chat, I don't think. Let me see. Oh, yes, there's here. I'm going to take this last question and then I'll ask my closing question. What are some ways aspiring criminology undergrad students can get involved in the field? So I would
Uh,
imagine, are there internships or, mentorship opportunities?
there are internships and there are mentorships. As I said, you can just, any of the companies right now, you see the Facebook, Instagram, IBM, all of these companies are looking for interns. So that's one of the ways in which you can get involved. You can also Google criminal justice companies that are using AI because there are several of them out there that are doing criminal justice corrections, that are doing public safety, that are doing policing, that are doing so many things that require AI, and they too are looking for interns and persons to hire. There's also justice tech. So if you were to like Google justice tech, you will see many of the companies that are looking for individuals to work in the field. Also, one of the things that you can do, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, you can connect with me on Facebook, you can connect with me on any platform. Tell me what your interests are, and I will share that with someone in the field to ensure that I can probably hook you up with something or introduce you to a company that is doing something as well. What I have found now is that many of the data scientists are reaching out to me because right now there are many data scientists who want to get more involved in criminal justice and who want to get more involved in justice, and they want that knowledge as well. So we have to get in there because I think for me what I realize is that many tools and applications and policies and procedures were being built around policing, around sentencing, around corrections, being built around our work, and we did not have a voice we did not have a voice there. So one of the things that I'm doing is trying to amplify the voice of criminal justice degrees and letting tech know that if you're building something that's going to be applied in a criminal justice, juvenile justice, public administration, terrorism studies space, do it in collaboration with someone with a criminal justice degree or a public admin degree or forensic science degree. It's important for those collaborations because if you want AI to really be legitimate and have the requisite level of maturity as of technology, you want to ensure that you have that multidisciplinary approach.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we're almost coming to the end of our conversation, Renee. But we've been talking about predictive analytics, and my car knows that at 6 o'clock in the morning I'm heading to the gym, and I didn't tell it. So it'll say 15 minutes to the gym because it's 6 o'clock. And I actually didn't even notice that until the other day. And I was like, oh my God, this is artificial intelligence. I got to tell Renee. But she
That's your
already
smart
knows.
car. That's your
But,
smart car. The
but
data is
Renee
being
already
collected.
knows. I don't need to tell her. She knows. So let's get predictive. Where, what's next for you? I know you talked about this residency at a university, but in the next 5 to 10 years, what's next for you? And what do you see? I mean, I see you as a pioneer. So what's your prediction for what, we want to say, well, we already knew that because we met Renee 10 years ago and she's been talking about this, and she's a John Jay graduate, and so am I. And people are going to want to align themselves to, your brilliance around this. So predict, tell us, Nostradamus of AI, what can we expect?
So one of the things that I've been really passionate about is reimagining policing, and that is my love, policing and law enforcement leadership. So much of my work, even my residency at the School of Data Science at the University of Virginia, is going to look at how we reimagine policing. So many of the things that you're going to see me doing would be bringing more accountability and transparency to the work of policing and where policing really lifts up communities. And that's what, I'm committed to working with communities. I am committed to building up the creative stock, the resources in underserved communities. I'm committed to ensuring Black and Brown data matter. And I'm committed to ensuring that however technologies are used, it's used in an ethical way and an equitable way, and that we can really inspire young people. I'm also committed to Black and Brown communities by bringing AI into those communities. And my project at Columbia University is called A New Code of the Streets. So there was an old code of the streets that was being used, but now it's a new code, and that new code is flipping the script on coding. And that is what I want to ensure happens. And I'm going to be really launching a product that I want to, a project and a product that really looks at communities in Upper Manhattan, anything from 96th Street right up to Inwood, and looking at how, throughout Washington Heights, how could we get more kids involved in this? Because we've got to have brown and Black kids involved in STEM, involved in coding, involved in changing the world. So I have this company called Urban AI, and one of the things that I want to do in between now and the next 5 years, and Urban AI is committed to ensuring criminal justice majors have a critical role in designing the future. So I plan to ensure that when I get this company going, that I can employ as many criminologists and criminal justice specialists and anyone working in forensics and policing involved. It comes down to the bottom line for me. It's really about change, and it's really about ensuring that all groups, although I'm committed to lifting up Black and Brown communities, I'm committed to all groups, and really empowering anyone who has been underrepresented and really amplifying that voice, because we all have something to contribute. And what I try to do is create as much space for anyone who has something to contribute, because it takes all of us to push society forward.
Oh my goodness. I feel like I need like a lighter and I have to kind of like amazing. This is so amazing. And I'm not a computer person and I am so interested in learning more about what this means, what it's going to mean for the future of like my child, for the students at John Jay. So with that, Renee, we have come to the end.
Thank
And
you.
I thank you so much for your time and attention. As I said earlier, you and everyone else could be anywhere right now for an hour and you chose to spend it with us. And one of my missions in my role as the Director of Alumni Engagement is to show other alums and current students and graduating students how dynamic and fabulous the alumni community at John Jay is. I mean, they are a resource that I want to shine light onto. So you are one of those folks, and I thank you so much for being with us this evening. I thank all of you. Please be well, please be safe, and I hope you'll join us at future events. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
very much. And to everyone who is part of this, remember that I am your resource. I am John J. Strong. Reach out to me, share what you want to do. And if I can direct you in that particular space, I will do that because it takes all of us. It takes all of us. And when I'm finished, you're going to be there pulling someone else behind you. And that's what I want to ensure.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much.
night,
Take
everyone.
care. Bye bye.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.
Be safe.